Hello and welcome to another chess video. We're still covering the Tata Steel Chess Masters and we're up to round number 11. Before going on to this game and some further games, here are the standings after 10 rounds. Magnus Carlsen leading with 7 points. He's on a +4 score. And meanwhile we have Giri. He's on +3. He's won 4 games and lost 1. Excellent score with the black pieces. And yeah, he's the nearest contender to Carlsen in this tournament, it seems. And in this 11th round, he had the white pieces against the US chess champion, Sam Shankland. And we're going to dive into this game because it's going to have a very big effect on the final standings. And, well, you won't believe what happened. E4 by Giri, E5. And we have the Italian game, Bishop C4, Bishop C5, and quiet Italian with D3. But not C3 now, which is the most common move, to play pawn to C3, which you've seen in plenty of games on the top level and on this channel. Instead, Giri went with knight C3. This is something that, yeah, some of these guys have been trying as well. You know, these little wrinkles here and there to confuse their opponent. And after d6, Giri goes immediately for knight to a4. So a slightly unusual approach here, going immediately for this dark squared bishop, trying to neutralize it. Sam goes queen to e7. He doesn't mind white taking on c5 because he will take with the pawn, and even though the pawn is doubled, he has good access to the d4 square, and if white wants to expel black from that square, he has to give up control of the d3 square, which can be maybe pressured later. So for now, Giri doesn't take on c5. Shankland offers the bishop trade, and Giri accepts. And now he takes with the queen. Usually in the Italian, black is taking with a pawn, then he castles and maybe uses the f-file, in some cases knight h5 to f4. But here you would have to give up 2 sets of double pawns, and that's not something you want. White can even immediately play with something like b3 and put pressure on this pawn. So you can't have 2 sets of double pawns there. That sort of negates the strength that the pawns sometimes possess. So queen takes e6, and now a novelty by Giri. Not a very common position. In the previous game, knight takes c5 was played, but it was not between very strong players, at least not compared to these guys, and Giri prefers b4. The bishop retreats, both sides get castled, and c4. So yeah, this prevents, of course, black from going at d5. Not that that was a threat, because, well, white would have played c4, c5 and trapped the bishop. But note that white is not yet threatening to trap the bishop, but still Shankland plays knight d7, which, well, does control c5 if white ever has ideas of doing that, and also prepares maybe to break with f5. Bishop e2 now by Giri, and the knight jumps into d4. Giri decides that he does not want to trade. If he does, well, black would be happy to take with the bishop, and this would actually be a strong pawn, nothing to worry about, so black would be absolutely fine about that. But Giri prefers knight d2, keeping the pieces on, and now f5 by Shankland. So this is the natural pawn break for black in this position. And he has a pawn chain that's going in this direction, so a very natural pawn break to play pawn to f5. Rook c1. But now a move that well, it doesn't feel wrong. It feels somewhat positionally that it's not justified, but maybe Shankland makes it work. She plays c5. And this does seem to give white a very nice outpost here on d5. And note that this knight can always be chopped off, and then white can play for a strong knight on d5. But maybe things are not that easy, and Giri takes on f5, plays knight e4. And this is an excellent piece, and I think we can state that white is yeah, he has some match here. He's doing better for sure. We have a trade. Giri now takes on b6, and Shankland takes with the pawn. So yes, double pawns, but on the other hand, he's activating the rook, and at the moment it's not so easy for White to pressurize these double pawns. Queen g6 now by Shankland, perhaps introducing some ideas of tickling White here on the king side, especially this g2 square and the light squares. Giri decides to neutralize the a file, and we have knight f6. And this neutralizes the strong knight on e4. Either it has to retreat or trade, and Giri decided to trade. If you don't trade, maybe you're allowing too many black pieces to come near your king, so Giri goes for the trade, takes on f6, rook takes, and queen to f3. And this looks slightly annoying for black. There's a jack here, and this pawn here on b7 is something to worry about. But Shankland correctly goes for knight to h4. Now if we take the pawn immediately on b7, which Giri didn't do, we can give a jack here and then take on d3. The rook is hanging. So this is fine for black. But Giri made a check on d5. And after that, now maybe you can think about taking on b7. Because if you go for the same line, you can't do that because there's a back rank mate. There's no more rook f8, which we had in the other line. So black would actually make luft here, and turns out black is fine because now the pawn is hanging and we still have this annoying knight f3 move, and black should be just fine. So instead of this, Giri went with pawn to f4. Shankland made luft, and now Giri went for the endgame. He played queen to e4. We quickly have some trades here. Shankland took on e4, took on f4, very forcing nature now of the play, and White plays e5. Now this pawn has to be taken, and bishop takes e5. So with this one being under attack, Shankland retreats the knight and protects the pawn, but he's not losing this pawn. So Giri is getting the pawn back, but is it enough? I mean, this looks pretty threatening, but black has 3 against 2 on the other side. So let's see what happened. Both sides bring the king, natural course of action in the endgame. The king becomes a powerful piece. And now Shankland, knight h4 check. The idea is to decrease the number of pawns. He manages to do that. Giri has a nice centralized king. But is it enough to make progress here? King e8, king e6. Yeah, this looks nice, but g5 and king f6 here. Here Shankland played king d7. Knight h4 also looks like a fine move, just blocking off access to this square and maybe thinking about attacking this pawn if needed. But Shankland preferred king to d7. And here, things start to happen, and this looks like black has everything under control. He plays knight to h4, bishop takes h6, and now he's naturally going for this pawn, because it seems like if you can take the h pawn, White can't win. We just put the king on c8, and if we avoid the knight getting into trouble, it's just going to be a draw. But see what happens. He goes for the pawn, bishop takes d5, and now bishop e3. And what is this? This is the trapped knight, the knight on the rim. It's Tim. I have this is a useful pattern. I have it in one of my pattern recognition videos. I will link to it up here. Have a look at it if you want to learn more about chess. But yeah, the knight can't move, but this is the problem. Shankland now goes for the pawns. The pawns are weak. King f5, king d5. And here, very interesting situation. Perhaps Shankland thought he was losing when black was starting to lose the pawns on the king side, and then he realized that his knight would be trapped. And at the same time, Giri was very confident, and he played b6 very confidently here. And believe it or not, Sam Shankland took a shocking decision here and he resigned the game. Why is it shocking? Because this is a completely dead draw. It's just unbelievable. This is like so well known, and people were just in shock all over Twitter and in the official broadcast. White can't win. Let's have a look. This is the final position. Shankland resigned. The draw is very easy. You just bring your king back. King d6. You can even play knight g5 first. The other knight. It doesn't matter. You don't need it. King d6. And the king gets back to d7. Did he have a mental block if you go back here? Like king here, king here? But even then, yeah, I don't know. But you don't have to go there. You can go to d6 or even give up the knight and then just go to d6. I mean, you don't have to go to c6. You just go to d6, then d7. And no matter what white does, it doesn't matter. The king gets to c8. And you can't win the pawn. There's no way to win the pawn. Because when your king approaches to win the pawn, it's stalemate. Very simple. And there's no way to create a zugzwang. We need white to move here. Let's say we play here, king to the corner, and the bishop is stalemating the king. So okay, let's say we do this. Still we try to approach, stalemate in the corner. Even if we manage to, let's say after king c8, if we block the king here, bishop here, and he can't go to b8, but what do we do now? King here. If you approach, it's stalemate. We're covering all the squares. So yeah, a shocking gift for Giri. Shankland resigns in a completely dead drawn position, and yeah, it's just a gift. I don't know what to say. This is just a stunning turn of events, and yeah, but okay, 2 rounds to go, and it's looking like we're gonna have a great game in the last round between Giri and Carlsen. But yeah, for this one, I'm signing out, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.